Welcome back to Gale Force Winds Season 4.
The Gale Force Winds podcast is proudly sponsored by the Newfoundland and Labrador Construction Association. The NLCA provides unparalleled opportunities for its members through industry education, construction information, government advocacy, and networking events. The NLCA is building Newfoundland and Labrador. For more information, visit nlca.ca. So folks, here we are. We're back on Gale Force Winds, and I'm extremely excited about this guest today. Our guest is going to introduce himself, but I just want to let you know that from my perspective, one of the most talented videographers in probably Newfoundland, and I would suggest maybe the country. The work that this gentleman does is prolific. People say Gale Force Winds is prolific. Well, go on his social media and see he's here, there, and everywhere all the time, and I really like that. What you are watching right now is a 4-minute and 38-second clip of one of Roger's productions. We were going to show a smaller portion of it, but I think it's worth showing the entire 4-minute segment. It's beautiful work.
The sea, my very soul's the sea. Tides and swells are but a part of me. Quietly, hauntingly, mystically moves the sea. Light and darkness and a mystery. Troubled vision of eternity. Timelessly, heartlessly, terribly moves the sea. And oh, how sad must be the tale she tells of those who lie deep in her spell. See you serve, but moan in mastery. Rage and cry and stir the depths of me. Set me free. Let me see. Let me be the sea. Oh, the sea, my very soul's the sea. Tides and swells are but a part of me. Quietly, hauntingly, mystically moves the sea.
But again, I've had a deep respect for you, Roger, over the years watching the stuff that you've created. And the fact that you're here in my studio that I set up 30 years ago is very exciting to me. We've actually been here now talking for about 35 minutes, so we needed to hit record. Let's get the ball rolling and just introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Roger Maunder, and I have a company called Shanneyganock Films. How I got into the whole videography, well, I started as an actor first. That was the first thing I did. Moved to Hollywood in 1993.
Did you really?
Yeah, without any credits, without anything.
Wow.
Because I, followed that dream or whatever. So I went down there and was there for 4 months. And 4 months of trying to get an agent with not having any credits was ridiculous. But then I met a lot of people, and I guess I just ran out of money, so I had to come back, and I ended up going to Toronto and becoming a picture double stand-in on a TV show called FX. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah, there's something in the cobwebs there about it. Yeah.
And when you're a stand-in, you're watching the DOP going around doing the lighting.
DOP? What's
DOP,
that?
Director of Photography.
Oh, okay.
So he's the guy that sets up the lights for every shot that's going to happen, and I got really interested in that. But just going back a little bit, growing up, I'm going to be going all over the place.
No problem. As Alan likes to say, we have the full internet, so we can talk for as long as you've got.
But growing up, my mother used to buy whatever the movie mechanism was at the time, whether it was discs where you had to flip over halfway through.
I remember those.
Or VHSs and then DVDs. And she was always on top of it, and she would have every movie that would ever come in. So that was kind of like an opening to me, and I just never thought it was possible to be able to be a filmmaker in Newfoundland. And when I was in Toronto doing that the work with FX, I found out about NIFCO, which is the Newfoundland Independent Filmmakers Co-op. And so I moved back, and myself and Dorian Rowe had aspirations to be filmmakers, and we banged on the door at NIFCO one day at 40 Queens Road. The window flew up, and it was Gene Smith going, "What do you want?" And we were like, "We want to join the film class."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Come on in." And then we signed up.
What year was that again?
That was 1999, I think. 98.
Yeah.
97. And we did that, and then myself and Dorian just started volunteering on every film that would come through, because they had a first-time filmmaker mentor or first-time filmmaker program that's still on the go right now. And you can basically write a script from 3 to 5 pages, and they get your crew and give you the gear. And that time you would shoot on film, 16mm film, 11 minutes of it to make a 4 to 5 minute film, and that was film school.
So you got 11 minutes, and you couldn't go over that.
Unless you wanted to put in another 500 for another role.
Right. The concept of that is foreign to many of our younger viewers, but so that pretty well forced you to get your act together in a hurry.
You had to be prepared when you went to shoot something. It wasn't like now where you have a phone to go
shoot whatever. Yeah,
exactly. You really had to figure out what you were going to do and kind of make a plan. And as you know, whenever you make a plan, the plans change no matter what. But at least you have a plan. And my first film was called It Ain't Funny, about a clown that breaks down on the highway on his way to a gig. And it was not a very good film, but it was the first one. It was a lot of fun.
How long was it?
It was way too long.
Yeah?
Yeah, I bought we shot it on a Bolex.
So, a what?
A Bolex film camera.
Yeah.
So you'd take, I think it was like 4.5 minutes, or anyway, you'd spin it. And I thought so this was learning everything.
You spin it.
Kind of like that kind of thing. And it would never be in sync, because it would be, actually you wouldn't spin it. I'm thinking of a Super 8 thing.
Yeah.
You would push a button, and it would say 24 frames a second, but it would drift. So it wasn't really 24 frames per second. And you'd record the audio, and then when you went to sync it up and we edited on a Steambeck. So this is going back now, because you could have edited on the computer, but I really wanted to learn the whole process of of the old way, you know, before I went into the digital part. So you would take the film and figure out where you're going to cut it with a razor, and take the other piece that you want to join the next scene, and put it on a piece of tape. And
are you working on the master at this point, or is this a copy?
This is a copy.
Okay.
Because then once you were done and finished, you would send it off, and then they would line up all the numbers to the master. And
I'm going to geek out a little bit on my questions, and forgive me if this is boring for you, but is the copy an exact reproduction, or is it a little bit of a downgrade in resolution?
No. It's
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly. The copy is what you're working on. That's
So, sorry, go back. So you're cutting
the negative,
and you're editing. Yeah. So.
And then you'd have to try to sync the sound by frame at a time. And then when we learned after, the first one that none of this is going to sync, it was, anyway, we worked it out. And it was horrible.
Jeez, funny.
In my mind.
You'll laugh.
It's your first film.
You'll laugh at this. So I did a recording a couple of weeks ago, and there was a guy on Zoom, and whatever was going on, when I put it into the computer, the editing computer's over there for anyone, that's why I'm pointing in this direction, it was not in sync. And I'm like, what is going on? I guess the Zoom connection put it off. But the worst thing was, it was drifting.
Yeah.
So there was someone saying to me, well, just a simple matter of cutting it and lifting it and moving the audio and all that. No, because it would drift. And it was like, that 30 seconds took me, I would say, an hour and a half.
35 seconds you had to move it back or something?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
horrible.
but it reminded, but that's how it was done years ago, right?
Yeah.
So did you ever sync that up?
Well, we did the best we could. And then we did sync it up. I mean, exactly like that. We'd have to take 3 frames up and move it up and do it again until we finally got it. And that's if the take was the one we wanted to use.
So you could have spent a lot of time on that one and then only realized, well, that's not the take we want.
Yeah. It was probably the one I probably should have used digital instead of doing it the old way.
Yeah.
But I learned everything that way, and then I never went back. That was it. Everything was digital from there on in.
Yeah. So you started shooting digital in the late 90s, or?
Well, I mean, editing digitally.
Okay.
But I still shot film.
Right.
I ended up working at NIFCO for a number of years as the first-time filmmaker mentor. After Justin Sims was there before me. And I think when I started, I think we were doing like 25 films a year. I think that was the max, because every weekend or 2 a weekend. And
25 films a year.
Yeah, that was the max.
Crap.
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was amazing because I got to be DOP and learned all about lighting while I was doing it at the same time. Learning from a lot of amazing other DOPs that we would bring in, like Jamie Lewis or Dirk Norman. A lot of the senior folks that were there before me. That's what NIFCO's all about. It's about helping others become filmmakers and be able to tell their stories.
I got to ask you this question that came to my mind. Do you watch movies? And if you do, can you watch them sensibly, or are you just...
Oh my God, no. Once you become a filmmaker, they're ruined. Ruined forever.
I'm not as bad as you because I'm not a filmmaker. I'm, video guy, but I do look at some movies and I'm like, I'll comment to the people in the room, geez, how did they do that?
Yeah.
No one else gives a shit. They're just being entertained by the movie. Yeah. You and I, on the other hand, are like, man, that was cool, right?
The latest one I saw was that new Ethan Hawke one.
Yeah.
And the cinematography in that was amazing. It was like, how are they doing some of this stuff? It was just, I guess you can do anything now. What you can think is, who said that? If you think it, you can do it.
Yeah. So just let's back it up a little bit, back to your, let's say, your school days. So in school, did this ever enter your mind that you would be involved in film, and secondarily, would you be on your own as a business owner?
I always wanted to do film, but I just didn't think it was possible. Mm-hmm. So go back to my mother again. I remember she bought a Super 8, and that was the first time I ever shot film.
One on the wall right there. Yeah. Huh?
And when that came back after shooting it, because it was before videotape and everything, I was just like mesmerized. I was like, this is amazing. But that's as far as it went until NIFCO years later.
Did you shoot anything on the Super 8? Or you?
Oh yeah, it was like vacations and stuff. No, I didn't have people that wanted to act or anything in my friend group.
Yeah.
They were all sports, baseball people.
Yeah.
But that is what hooked me, really. And sadly, I had no opportunity to do anything until later on. And now, like, I keep talking about NIFCO because NIFCO is, it's a really important thing here in Newfoundland. They reach out to kids, teaching kids in high school and different places, just everybody. Nobody be able to, any filmmaker you ever talk to in Newfoundland, well, St. John's especially on the Avalon, has gone through NIFCO at one point or another.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I didn't do any film, I did video, and I learned through Rogers Television, which was Cable Atlantic at the time. But I had a similar experience to you. I remember I was, I don't know, 18, and they gave me a camera, and it was worth like $50,000, and I was scared shitless. They were, now don't break it, right? Yeah. Of course, you know, I'm 18 years of age, and I'm like treating this thing like it was a baby, you know? And then other guys that have been around were like grabbing the shit and breaking stuff and everything. But I will say that really shaped my ability to get things done. So NIFCO did the same thing for you, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you know, that's how you learn. You learn from your mistakes. So when you make your mistakes, and you know, like not hitting the record button or something like that.
Yep.
That'll never happen again.
Well, it's always, look, I'm monitoring it now, and I'm always, here I am interviewing one of the most, you know, impressive videographers, and I'm like, better get it right. You'll laugh, when Jesse Sterling was here, I had a multi-camera shoot going on, and I was monitoring it, and the audio was totally out of sync, and I'm thinking, God, it's funny, you know, when you're with someone who knows the business and you're trying to get it done right, it's usually the time when things go wrong, right?
Well, yeah, I've had that too. It's just like you're double thinking and triple thinking, and probably like just go with what you do. Yeah. Because when you do that, that's when you make mistakes, I think. At least for me. Oh,
yeah, and you know, we'll geek out on the video side of things in a minute, but back to your, you know, so you're in school, your mom has a Super 8, you're seeing a little bit of this stuff when the tape comes back.
Yeah.
Several months later, isn't that hilarious? How that used to work, and everyone would gather around the machine and watch it. So
that's true, because when I was like the mentor at NIFCO, we would shoot the film and we'd have to send it off to Toronto to get processed and transferred to a beta tape.
Yeah.
It would take like a week or two, and like with bated breath, waiting, and then pop it in, and everybody would watch it. And it's like, now it's so much different.
Yeah.
You can just play it back and go, no, that's not right.
Well, I can't even imagine what you went through shooting a movie. I mean, even before I hit record, I did an audio test, and I can do that instantaneously. Yeah. Like, how would you even do an audio to make sure your audio is recording? Are you kind of like not sure, and you just hope for the best, or what?
And no, we'd have audio guys to do that.
Yeah.
that was their department.
Yeah.
That way, you know, in order to be a really good at what you do when it comes to video or film or whatever, you should be doing everything like a grip or an audio guy or a camera guy or costumes or set dressing, because you need to know everything in order to be that person, you know, a director, I think, a good director.
Well, you're right, and I find, like, for Gale Force Winds, there's times when Al and I are doing stuff and you're so focused on so many things, and it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. We got invited to go on the HMCS Toronto, right? And we were asked, you know, what kind of entourage are you bringing with you? And I said, just myself and Alan.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? You're going to shoot a series of videos with just you and him?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The challenge with that, though, there's a lot on the go when you're hitting a record button, and you got to make sure that everything is working, you know? Yeah. And knock on wood, I've been pretty good with that. There's once I did a Zoom, and you'll laugh at this, it wasn't switching, and I didn't know, and all it did was record myself and Alan. So the person we were interviewing was the tiny little thing up in the top, and we were like, just staring. So anyway, that was screwed up, and we had to redo that one, but yeah.
But it's true. I mean, before, you'd need a crew, and now, where you can have your camera tripod and your audio and your lights, you don't need to be crew anymore.
No.
You can, you know, 2 of you or 3 of you, and you're off to the races in a lot of big ways. Depends on the production and what it is that you're doing, whether you need like costume and all that kind of stuff. But for, you know, doing interviews or corporate videos and things, you don't need what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
You just need to make a really good product, and by what other people are doing, I guess I'm talking about like ad agencies and things like that, right? And there's an argument there for all the different departments to make it the best product it can be, but I don't know. I think if you know what you're doing, it can be really good.
Well, it's funny you say that. I did some work with a couple of young ladies on a podcast, and it was a youth podcast, and one of them had an iPhone 8, maybe, and I wanted to encourage her to be able to use the tools that are in her hand. So I literally took her phone, put it on one of my tripods, and we shot the whole thing on her phone. Yeah. And she was amazed. I'm telling you something, I couldn't tell the difference between that and some of the other cameras, and I was like, to your point, depending on the use, like sometimes it's overkill. And I think people need to really get a sense of what is the end use of this. And if it's going on the internet and it's not going up on a big screen blowing up, you don't need to spend an outrageous amount of money, right? No. Now, you and I are business people. If you want to spend your money with us, go ahead. Yeah. But I think to be true to the craft, Roger, I've always advised people, look, there's things you can do, and there's things, if you want to throw that money at it, but I don't think you need to. That's how we advise people. So it's interesting and refreshing to hear that you have a similar mindset to that,
100%, I do. After NIFCO, I ended up working with an ad agency for a number of years, and that really kind of helped me with the whole business side of things, because when I started, I had no idea it was a business. Yeah. To be honest, it was like, I just want to tell stories and make movies, and but then when you had to buy the stuff, the film, and get it processed, it's like, how are we going to raise the money? But then when I started working in the advertising agency, it kind of really opened my eyes in a big way, because I loved it. It was way more stressful though, just because I guess there's a lot of money riding on a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of people involved. But I kind of thrived on that too. Yeah. And really, really, it made me a better, I guess, business person, but also video person when it came to storytelling and that kind of aspect. That makes sense.
It does. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm seeing a bunch of circles that I don't normally see, which is really weird for me. Just hang on 1 second. I have no idea what that's doing, but I think it's recording.
There it's gone.
Yeah. Anyway, it's funny, isn't it, when you're in the middle of doing a recording, and this is why I monitor this. You want to make sure it's the best you can be. Just sorry, I trampled on your point. What was your last point again?
I don't remember.
That's fine.
Just about going into advertising.
Right.
And then coming out of that.
Yeah.
Well, then I started Upside Down.
Well, name of a business is a really important thing. Tell me a little bit about Up, Sky, Down. Where did it come from? And I personally have never been, that's the name of my very first company, the Video Success Shop.
That's a great name.
Yeah, but I'll tell you a story about that. Let me tell you a story before you answer yours. I got a call one day, and this guy goes, Gerry, and I don't think I've told this on tape before, and you'll know why when I tell it. Gerry, this is back in the 90s. He said, you do pornos?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, excuse me? He said, you're the Video Sex Shop, right? And I'm like, no, I'm the Video Success Shop. I changed the name the next day to the Video Man Multimedia.
Oh my God,
anyway,
that's so funny.
Trampled on your story again.
You made a lot of money.
No interest in that, thank you very much.
I'm only kidding.
Yeah.
But that's hilarious. Upside Down Films started after I graduated from grade 12. Me and a girlfriend at the time and her friend started a business called Upside Down. It was about mowing lawns and weeding, but it was also about washing windows.
This is interesting. Yeah. I never thought this would be the origin of your business, but anyway.
Because I washed windows with a company called Canada Clean Glass.
I remember, yeah.
You'd go up to top of Scotiabank and come down. So you go up to the sky and come down washing windows. So Up, Sky, Down Films. That's where it kind of came from. It came from that first company, and I just took it and went with that.
That's interesting, yeah. That's an interesting origin. So in terms of the business, at what point did you leave a paycheck and move into a business of your own? I'm really interested in that journey.
What happened there? Well, I was at NIFCO for 10 years, and then a friend of mine, Christopher Dovsky, was at an advertising agency, and they had a big client that came in, and she hired me and a couple other people to come in and come and do a whole bunch of videos for this particular. It was like a fundraising, particular kind of like how we met there last the big
raise. Yeah.
It was about raising money for a hospital. And then once I think it was a couple of years, 3 years maybe, and then that client moved on to a different person, so we weren't we were needed anymore. So then when that happened, I just went 100% into Upside Down Films.
Interesting.
And,
so the client left.
Yeah.
That left you in the lurch.
Yeah.
Advertisers are fickle, by the way. But anyway, if you're an advertiser, I said that. I spent 30 years in advertising. So the decision, though, to go out on your own, okay, you basically didn't have employment.
No.
So you're sitting there thinking, okay, what's next? Did you kind of have a foray into the business side on the side as you were working, or did it happen overnight?
I kept volunteering to do things for friends of mine, and for little money. I was doing a lot of music videos, Fortunate Ones and Shanneyganock and a couple of those. And with the success of those, other word of mouth, and people started seeing it, and then we just started picking up a lot of, and some of the clients that were with some of the agency stuff, I guess didn't want to pay the big amounts out and knew that we could do it for way less.
Again, I have so much respect. Music videos?
Love them. You don't have to worry about sound for music videos, because it's already there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I just found the whole syncing it up and everything, I found it very tedious. So you'll never get any competition from me on the music video side of things. I've fooled around with it, but I did do a bunch of live, recordings of orchestras and stuff like that. That can be pretty daunting as well.
Yeah.
Right?
So
that's different than a music video, but have you done much of that kind of work?
Not really, no.
No.
Not orchestra.
What do you think of it? Because I find it very challenging.
Well, you have a lot of moving parts because you have so many instruments going on, so many shots that you have to incorporate. And I remember during COVID, there was a lot of those, with the NSO and stuff. And it's I don't know who's editing this.
I do.
That's tough.
Steve Powers, his name.
Yeah.
And I sent him a note, and I said, man, good on you. I think he had 9 cameras.
You can throw everything into. These days, there's so many templates that are already made for you, which is absolutely.
He had 9 cameras going.
Yeah.
You pictured all that. Now we're geeking out a bit, but you put that in the timeline and try to sync all that up, and I'm like, okay, that's a little more than what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But on that note, time-wise, I find it challenging sometimes to manage expectations of clients. And, in the digital space in particular, they say, it's digital. Everyone thinks because it's digital, it's easy.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that?
My thing that I always say is you're only as good as your last video. Because if it sucks, then everything you did before is out the window. Yeah. Really? It's he lost it.
Yeah.
They lost it.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing anymore. So, you got to be on your A game all the time, I think.
Yeah.
And the best thing that I love about the business that we're in is that it's never the same. Every day is different. Every project's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For example, I've been working with Opera on the Avalon, myself and Dave Howells.
I know, and I got to tell you that is incredible work. I really like it.
Into the spheres. All the birds have wintered out. And there are only slants of light that dance along with the mad woman. The old bone dance. Our limbs are tucked up in under the wintering sky. We say we'll dance come spring, come thaw.
not my cup of tea,
Yeah.
but you're doing amazing work there.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And, you know, growing up, I was never a big opera person.
Yeah.
And it's not all opera. It's acting. It's everything. Every kind of art form. Because that came from COVID, too. That whole...
What I mean by not my cup of tea is that it's not my cup of tea from a technical perspective.
yeah,
but
yeah.
anyway,
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
gotcha.
I like the opera, and they're doing good work. But yeah, so you're in COVID. You were doing a bunch with them.
They couldn't perform. So then Cheryl, who's brilliant, came out with this idea of highlighting artists around different parts of Newfoundland. And that's how me and Dave Howells got involved. And then Drew Kennedy came on the last couple of years. And we've been traveling all over the place, and it's turned into this amazing thing. And we're like, it's great to highlight other artists and to collaborate with them all over the place. Recently, we were over in France, and we went to Beaumont Hamel. You know, I've always heard people saying how emotional that is, but when you get there, man, that just like, I can't even describe the feeling. Like 3 of us, 10 minutes driving up to there, had tears in our eyes. It was beyond anything I've ever felt in my entire life. And all these films are going to be coming out next month and the month after. There's a story on Beaumont Hamel. There's a couple other stories about people when they left Ireland, come to Newfoundland. There's a whole series of them. But
Is this with Opera the Avalon?
yeah, it's all opera on the Avalon. But everything is so different. I got to work with somebody I haven't worked with since Random Passage, the actress from Random Passage, Aoife. Wrote a script for her about a lady that loses everything and has to leave Ireland to go to the new land, Newfoundland. So I'm really excited about that one. And most recently, not with the opera, but it's Dave Howells is involved because he's one of the best photographers around. And now he's a video guy, which he said he would never ever do. But now
Technology's allowed him to move into that direction, right?
And he's
we need to get him on the interview as well.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
We met with, actually first I met with Chad Richardson, who's an old buddy of mine from high school.
Videographer as well, right?
No, he was...
His brother is videographer.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Chris.
Yeah.
But he was a Broadway actor with Rent years ago.
Yeah.
And he's a musician. And he lives in California right now. It's called Hello Ronin, and it's about highlighting artists around the world. You find out, you discover who they are, and as you're discovering who they are, they're developing a piece of art that they auction off at the end.
Wow.
And he had an idea of doing a photographer somewhere in Newfoundland. And I was like, have you met David Howells? Because that guy has a story, he's hilarious, and just everything he's done over the years, from over in England, down in New York, Miami, and just because he's hilarious. Everything will be funny, believe me. Anyway, we went and shot it and talked to Dave, and Dave was totally into it, and we set up a photo shoot out in the Barrens. And that was the first one we did and edited, and I think whoever the funder is behind Hello Ronin didn't expect it to be the way it was. And that comes out soon. It will be out soon. But a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call from Chad saying that Boone, who's the guy behind all of it, that he loved it so much that he wanted us to go to the Philippines and interview a 107-year-old tattoo artist, Apo Wang Ad, who I've never heard of before, but it seems like everybody else in the world has.
I never heard of her until you and I talked about it before you went.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
And so we're like, yeah. And I was like, it'd be really cool is to get Dave to come along as the first person, but also doing the photos, plus he could be B camera.
Yeah.
And he was all for it, and Chad was all for it. So we all went down there, and that was such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
It was a long way to go. It was like 30 hours to get there, 12-hour drive, then like an hour and a half through the jungle up to, and then going down these zip lines. It was a trip of a lifetime. But we got to meet this amazing lady. I ended up getting a tattoo that I never said I would ever do. These 3 dots, that's her signature. It's based on her and her 2 nieces who she's teaching. She's the last one of her tribe to do this kind of tattooing.
Does she speak English? No.
No, we had an interpreter. But it's something, it was one of those kind of crazy things that I never thought I would ever, an adventure that I would ever be on. And that is something I'll remember for the rest of my life, because that was just phenomenal.
I'm going to say something, and I knew this story, and I'm glad you brought it up. I love Newfoundland stories, but I think I also love being able to bring stories from around the world back to Newfoundland, and I see the passion in your eyes. Yeah. I can't wait for that story to come out. The picture you posted on social media of the lady is like, oh my God, I can't wait to hear her story. Yeah. I think the ability for you to bring stories back to Newfoundland, do you see yourself doing a little more of that in the future?
Oh yeah, they're talking about a slew of them. There's, I think, there's Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam. They have artists on their roster. If you go to TikTok, there's Hello Ronan on there, and they highlight all their artists on there. There's one guy we actually interviewed on the way down to the Philippines, Russell, who paints on his hand and puts it on a piece of paper and creates, he did one of Appa.
Really?
And so we took that art and presented it to her down there, or Chad did. And he's a part of the whole storyline.
Right.
And it was really cool to incorporate two artists from different sides of the world and bring them together,
That's amazing. Back to the business side of things, when you have a dream, it's amazing, isn't it, where you end up? The fact that you've been there, I can tell, like, it's just, you're almost amazed that it happened.
I am, totally. I just never ever expected to get a phone call about going to the Philippines, and 2 weeks later we're there, because it didn't really sink in. And the same with going over to Ireland and France, telling these stories, especially a story about Beaumont Hamel that is so important to Newfoundland. That's pretty, a bit of pressure there, to be honest. I feel like there's a bit of pressure, maybe there's not, I don't know. But personally, I hit the mic.
That's all right.
Personally,
imagine that, a videographer hitting the mic.
Yeah.
If you were back there, you'd be really mad at you.
Yeah, exactly. But I just feel like telling really important stories like that is, it may seem cheesy, but I feel like I just love it, and that's what I was meant to do. Is that weird?
No, not at all. It's interesting, like, the reason you're in this is because of stories. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I can't remember what this person did for a living, but they were talking, I think it might have been a psychologist, and how important stories are to our lives and how we pass them on. I feel so blessed to be able to bring people's stories to light.
What's our culture?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is a storytelling culture. You and I have the skills to be able to record those, but I think being able to record the legacy of Newfoundland and Labrador is also something that I think I see you doing, So, you've been to Thailand. What are you involved in right now besides Hello Ronan? What else is going on? Because on social media, you're all over the place.
Yeah. I'm helping a friend of mine, Noel Joe. I'm mentoring him. It's his first film that he's doing called The Forgotten Warriors.
Yeah, I've seen some social media posts on that.
About the 1983 hunger strike. When 9 individuals from Conn River came over and took over Joe Gowdy's office, because the government at the time, Peckford's government, were withholding funds that was supposed to go to them.
Really?
I don't want to tell the whole gist of it until the film comes out, but learned a lot on that one. Everything about Indigenous or the Mi'kmaq culture, I learned so much over the years that I really didn't know, and I just love everything about it. It's life-changing. Like Noel and what First Light are doing with Indigenous communities, Newfoundland and Labrador. But everything I learned down there with Chief Joe was a big part of the documentary, because he was one of the hunger strikers back in the day. They took us to a place called Bay Nord, a spiritual place that we did some ceremonies up there, or they did some ceremonies as we recorded it.
Oops. This is a challenge. That's a landline, by the way, folks. We have a landline in our house.
Anyway, everything about everything I've learned from Noel and the community has been amazing, especially listening to all the stories from the hunger strikers and people that were involved during that time. And crazy that they had to go through what they had to go through to get, but it's so good to see what they've done to get it back, and good on them, you know, they're amazing people.
Well, I've seen you post some social media. I mean, some of the locations that you've been in, the Bay du Nord area and all that.
Yeah.
Stunning.
It is.
That's
yeah,
more of the south coast of Newfoundland, right? Which, yeah.
Con River, it's a helicopter ride because it'll take a couple of days to get there.
Yeah.
But which was fun. I love getting in a helicopter, and it's not too often that happens.
I've been in one helicopter when I was in the. I spent time in the Navy, and let's just say it was an interesting experience, to say the least. So that's one project you're on. Of course, you're open for business, and you'll take on a lot of different projects.
I'm mentoring Jessica Brown, who's another Indigenous lady from
I know who she is, yeah.
And she is making things happen in a big way.
Yeah.
We're doing documentary on Indigenous veterans from the West Coast and Con River, and Noel came on as a co-director for 2 of those episodes. And another one, Here to Stay, but just Indigenous youth and people growing up in St. John's. And I think that is going to go to air soon.
So you do a lot of stuff that ends up on television, correct?
Yeah, lately.
Yeah.
We did Snook lately for Bell.
Yeah.
And it was great to bring Snook back.
Yeah. So when you do that production is a little bit bigger. You need more people and all that. Yeah.
That one was a little bit bigger, yeah, for sure. Probably had more than we needed, but that's just me thinking, that way, trying to save money, basically. But I wasn't the producer on that. I was just the director, and with Pete, and Pete got that down. He knows, and he's hilarious.
I've actually never had a conversation with him, but I've been around him as he's doing his thing, and he is a talented guy, isn't he? Very smart business guy too.
Have you ever seen him paint?
No.
What a paint!
Is that right?
He had a show on Bell as well. He would do portraits of people like Gordon Vincent.
Yeah.
And he is phenomenal artist.
On that note, I did have occasion, my really good friend growing up, Paul Joy, brought 5 painters called the Men Who Paint from Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, and we covered it on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can search that. Fascinating. What I want to get into is a little bit about arts, the arts. You have a very artistic background. You are an actor yourself. The juxtaposition of arts and business to me is fascinating, and you're straddling that a lot. What does it mean to you to be able to feature some, opera on the Avalon and all the other artists that you are involved in? What does it mean to you to be part of that?
I just feel very fortunate to be able to do it. I had an email from somebody saying it must feel really amazing to be able to, be able to work with all these people and be able to tell these stories and to get these messages out there. And I do feel that way. I just feel so lucky. With everybody, whether it's and a lot of this is artists giving something to help somebody, like say Kelly Loader with Stella Circle. She came in, they came in and wrote a song with the Inclusion Choir over a couple of times, and then created this amazing, beautiful song that just went crazy. Just before Christmas.
Yeah.
Keep on walking, pick up your heels. Keep on walking, see how it feels. Walk on a road you've never been down. You might be lost, but you can be found. Maybe it's time to cut a new path. Maybe it's time you never look back. You're not alone on the life highway. Hear me when I say I'll never give up on you. I'll never give up on, never give up on you. I'll never give up
And then like with Alan Doyle with his organization,
$1 a day.
$1 a day.
Yeah. You do some work with that one as well?
We have, back a couple of years ago. And Chris Andrews from Shanneyganock and everything that he gives. I mean, all these artists are contributing so much more into the community than a lot of people know, I think.
I know.
And I mean, they're always the first ones to say yes too, right? And I love being a part of that.
Well, it's funny, you brought me back to Alan and I have done a lot of work with Perchance Theatre. And what they're doing for the Conception Harbor area when they've moved now, they're going to single-handedly revitalize the economy of that area. And I don't think the artistic community gets enough credit for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree.
But, Daniel Irvine and her team are the most creative people I've ever been around. And it gives me an enormous amount of pleasure to help them get their message out. We're different. We're not shooting cinematography. What we're trying to do is make sure that Perchance Theatre gets the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
It's not like she wants to, put her hand up and say, look what we've done, but I've never been around anyone as articulate as she is. And I'll tell you,
That'd be fantastic.
when she started talking to us about her new vision for the theater and how they're going to rebuild all that, I said to her, I've been around business for 35 years. I've never seen anyone get to the point as quick as you. And that's why we're involved in it. It's something that we're doing for them. We're part of the, charitable giving side of it. And anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I get so much out of that. It's one thing for me and you to go out and shoot a video and you make a couple $1,000. That's great.
Yeah.
But when you can tell a story.
$1,000? You make that much money?
Well, that's what we're trying to get to. Anyway, but go back a bit and talk a little bit more about the business side of things, not to get into the details of it, but for us, this was not a business, and I've been around business, but it's not that easy to be on your own, I find it, frankly, somewhat lonely sometimes.
And worrisome sometimes.
You're the chief, January, February are never pleasant, I find, but you're the chief cook and bottle washer, and, perfection in videography is something that we're all striving for. Talk a little bit about, your experience.
You definitely need that, but you also need to have that connection with the client too. You know what I mean? I mean, I find that's my favorite thing is like coming up with the ideas with the person that's hiring you, and then kind of brainstorming together, and then coming up with this really great plan, and everybody's kind of in, because the whole thing is collaborative effort. Yeah. Whether it's with the people that you're interviewing or that you have involved, or the person's paying for it, or you, the person that's going to put it all together. I love that. I thrive on that. That is like the most fascinating and invigorating thing for me is that whole thing. Whether you're getting a paycheck or not. Lately, and I learned so much from different things. Like I was hired to put together a documentary on Dr. Maroon. Do you know who Dr. Maroon is?
No.
He's a surgeon from Baghdad, I think.
Something's starting to ring a bell for me.
He was the first one to do surgeries while people were awake on, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Surgical Society of Newfoundland hired me to do it. It took a long time because of COVID and everything. Mm-hmm. But he's pretty much touched every family in one way or another in Newfoundland. And it helped me introduce me to him and his wife, and he's always on the search for spirituality, but also for wisdom and information, and such a amazing guy. You were talking about Perchance, because Dr. Fitzpatrick was
we interviewed him.
That hired me for that.
Really,
And Dr. Rideout.
Don Fitzpatrick was his name. Yeah.
And he was like the leading guy on it, and all those doctors are involved. And I think he was Dr. Maroon was the mentor for all these surgeons coming through, and colleagues. It was, and just listening to the stories and listening to Dr. Maroon tell me his story was, it's one of those things where you feel like privileged to be a part of, and I just felt lucky.
Well, it's funny, you say that in learning about Newfoundland, you have knowledge that many people don't because of the circles that you're circulating
Lebanon,
in.
not Baghdad. Oh my God, what am I talking about?
Lebanon.
Yeah.
Okay. But I look at Newfoundland, and Alan and I have had the occasion, and I know you've done some work in Stephenville. There's Stephenville. What's going on there? World Energy. Then in Gander, we did the mining show, and then I learned that the man who's the #1 gold investor in the entire world hadn't done any public statements in 5 years, was retired, came out of retirement, put $210 million into Gander, said Gander is potentially the biggest gold find in the history of Canada, possibly the world. Then I'm going to continue what goes on, all the work in Argentia that's going on with the various things down there. Then you got Everwind down in the Burin Peninsula, not to mention the tech industry.
Energy.
World Energy is happening out in Stephenville. It's just, to me, I find the province is on the cusp, Roger, of some of the biggest economic resurgence that it's ever seen in its history. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you sense that as well?
100%.
Yeah.
It's crazy what's going on right now. I'm afraid to say anything. I'm afraid to jinx it.
I know.
You know what I mean? But there's so many great minds behind all of these things that I cannot see it failing.
No.
Hope not. Anyway.
Well, I mean, you look at Hibernia, that was a $6 billion thing in the 90s, a lot of money. I mean, what's going on with these projects I just mentioned, we're talking multiple billions and multiple projects in the multiples of billions. So I feel, for me, Gale Force Winds, we're trying to spread the optimism because it's true. It's true. It's out there.
Yeah.
We're getting close now to the end. I think, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and we actually didn't geek out too much on technology or editing. We could have gone into,
4K, 8K. Oh, right.
Well, someone said to me 16K, and I'm, what? 16K exists? But anyway, I think what you're doing around this province is amazing, and I just think there's so many stories out there, and there's so much room for all of us to fit in our niche. That's why I wanted you on this podcast, because frankly, I have so much respect for what you've created by yourself, frankly, and it can be a little lonesome when you're on your own,
Yeah.
January, February. Any clients that owe us money, could you pay us now? But yeah, anyway, let's just ask, I'm going to ask you this. We always ask a piece of advice. There's an aspiring, you use the word mentor a lot. Mm-hmm. I really like helping out people, young people learning. I don't care if they're young or old, it doesn't matter. What advice would you give to some aspiring filmmaker, business person, I don't know, morph it all together, whatever you want to say to, someone?
I think I was saying earlier about, for a filmmaker, get to know every facet of business, whether it's camera, assistant camera, sound, every facet of what it takes to make a production. Because you cannot be a filmmaker and say, well, what's taking so long for the set dresser? Because you don't know what's taking so long. But if you were a set dresser and you did that, you would know. Yeah. When they explained it to you. The simplest thing is just don't give up.
Yeah.
Just keep going and don't let people pull you down. I mean, somebody was telling me the other day about they're trying to start, and then they hear people say negative things about them because it's like that lobster pot story. Every time someone's trying to get out, the rest of them are pulling them back in until they're out and they're successful. You can't stop. You just got to keep going no matter what. I think that's it.
I love that. And you know what? You brought to mind a little bit about my own personal challenge with video production is that you kind of put your heart into it, and then someone within an organization might literally trash it, and it's like I really struggled with that. overcome that because, well, frankly, we don't get that criticism too much. But there are times when someone may criticize something that may have taken hours to put together. I used to take all that personally. Is this kind of hitting the nerve with you?
Oh my God, 100%.
Because you and I are so passionate about the product that we're putting on the street, and then you hear someone like just trash it. It's like, oh my God. I've had to mature when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, everybody does, I think, because it's so close to you. You're going through every frame of that, and just like trying to make it best it can be before you even put it out there. And you're probably talking to like 10 of your friends saying, watch this and let me know what you think. And then when it goes out there and somebody just trashes it or says something negative that can really kind of play on you, it's tough, but you do have to get past it and go, the next one's going to be better. And you probably learn from that, because maybe there is a bit of truth to something that they're saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. That is a good point, and I never thought of it that way, but I am now reflecting on it. Maybe I shouldn't have reacted that way when I was criticized, right? Yeah. But I think...
Let's have another glass of wine.
Let me ask you this. Are you ever satisfied with the product that you put out?
I am when I hit publish.
Because you had to be.
You do.
Yeah.
Because deadlines and things like that. But, no matter what you do, you always look back at it and say, I should have done this or I should have done that. I think that's the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah. What I like having a business partner. I was a solopreneur for many, many years on the wedding side, and that was just me. But having a business partner sometimes makes me, a lot of times makes me better. Yeah. Because Alan will say to me, well, maybe you should do this. And I'll look at him and say, Jesus Christ, do you have any idea how long that will take for me to do that? I begrudgingly do it, and then I was like, he was right. This is much better, right?
That's why I love working with the team, with me and Dave and Drew. Me and Dave mostly, because Drew's on the West Coast. Whenever I'm doing a project, I try to involve him, because two of us have a really great working environment. We know what each other's talking about, and he'll throw ideas and I'll throw ideas, and we kind of, especially with Opera and the Avalon, and it's just, it's a really great partnership when it comes to creating art and making things look good, I think. Yeah. Well, we're talking now for 52 minutes, and I could talk for more, but we do have to get this gentleman back to his business, and I've got a few emails I got to get out, But I'll say this, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Roger, on this podcast. We didn't talk a lot about this. First time I ever met you was at Jeff Sterling's place, and there's been lots of people that have motivated you and I over the years, and we do things very differently. What we're doing, I think, is fitting a niche for the province, and telling stories is the ultimate motivator. And Jeff Sterling was a big part of this storytelling. I mean, MTV, and I started the Nickel Film Festival 24 years ago, and the Nickel would not have kept going without Jeff's contribution to it, I must say. He was a big part of, because the second year, after the first year, everybody volunteered. Second year, I wasn't even sure, but he came on board. We did Waiting for Fidel. He did a Q&A, which you can watch on YouTube, and he also contributed to the whole.
And that Waiting for Fidel motivated, Michael Moore is quoted as saying that motivated him to become a documentary filmmaker. Mm-hmm. You're right. I don't know if people, because Jeff was pretty eccentric, and you and I were lucky enough to be in his company. And I think he did that intentionally, probably try to keep people away from him. But there was just something about him. He loved the province. And if you watch any of his videos, he did a video down in Argentia in 1972, and he's talking about the economy and the people. It could be shot yesterday. He was so far ahead of his time, and he motivated me all those years ago. Jesse told me a good story. I was in the Queen Elizabeth in Montreal, where we often stay, and Jeff was actually involved in making that happen, the bed-in with John Lennon.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah, because they went over to Europe, him and Scott met with John and Yoko, and I think that's how that all came to be.
It is, because he said, I've heard your song.
He mentions it in the interview I did with him.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, just for anyone who wants to know, and Roger, you can, like, what would they search? Just Jeff Sterling and your name? Would you find it that way?
Roger Maunder.
I've watched all those and they're fascinating. But Jesse told me a funny story is that, guess who paid the bill for the hotel? It wasn't John Lennon.
Jeff, was it?
He paid the bill.
We had all those radio stations right across. A lot of people don't know a lot about Jeff. There needs to be a documentary.
Well, actually, I wrote some stuff, and I believe it's up on YouTube. I think, and if you do that, I would like to be involved in some way. I just think you're right, because
Me and Jesse had talked about it years ago. We're planning on it, but I think he's going to write the book first.
Okay. Well, you know what? Again, we're kind of geeking out now on a person that motivated both of us, but there's a lot of people in Newfoundland and Labrador that are doing great things. You're one of them, and I'm just so happy to have you on this podcast. Keep doing what you do, keep telling the stories, and maybe there's some sort of collaboration in the future, right?
I'm so happy you asked me to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.